Now we're going to cover packing for double bag static line. Everything up to this point, it's the same as what you would do to pro-pack a main in freefall configuration. We're taking it from section 9 of the manual, focusing on DBSL packing. So up to this point, the pack job was nothing else than the same thing that you're familiar with for freefall. What changes from now is how we manage the D-bag and the drug slider control line. Please pay attention to these 4 inches of excess that sticks out. Because everything is in line, if you pull, it's not going to come any further. But after you S-fold the canopy, if you do go ahead and pull, you will be able to extract further the line. That is something you want to avoid at all costs. So that's the configuration it's going to be when it comes out of the bag. Keep it that way. What I'm doing different is keep this patch of cotton out of being rolled under into the fold. And now we go for rigor check number 3 to verify that the canopy is folded correctly and the buffer pad and the line are positioned correctly. Okay, I open the mouth of the bag. I work one corner in at a time, focusing more on the bottom portion than the top portion of the pack job. I want to make sure that that first fold goes all the way into the corner. And that's on both sides. Now, I locate my patch of cloth, spread it, and I'm going to put it in so that the grommets line up. And the cotton remains around to buffer the rest of the cloth from getting caught in between. As you can see, now I have grommet to grommet, the same amount of drug slider control line sticking out, and I just need to work the rest of the canopy in place. I can double check that everything is still in the same place. And now I can repeat the same trick that I did before. On this side, the S-fold, it's in line with the mouth and I have access. This access I'm going to roll in, making sure that I don't disturb what I made earlier. So lining up, not disturbing the lining up of the grommet with the grommet. And now I can double check and still see that the grommet, if it moved slightly, it can be shifted back and everything is as it's meant to be. Now we need to close these flaps. The one with a half an inch type 4 loop goes over first, and then the other one goes over second. The critical part is to get these grommets as close to the safety stow loop as possible, instead of pulling the safety stow loop over to the grommets. And in order to achieve that, we need to compress the pack job some. And as you can see, that produces the result, the desired result. I'm temporarily stowing it so I can finish feeding it through everywhere. So the proper closing sequence follows the seam. So if you forgot, think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm taking this portion, okay. So all these rubber bands are stowed single. Now you can see the grommet. There's only 2-3 inches sticking out, and the stows go to the seam. Now, ideally, you want this stop to be in the middle. So if it falls out, you compensate by stealing away a little bit from the previous one so that you can make it go in the center. And the following stow after the stop will be the last one. And this is rigor check number 4 that verifies that the canopy and inner bag grommets are aligned and no more than 6 inches of cotton covered drogue glider control line is exposed after the grommets. Verify the locking stows are in the correct sequence and the drogue glider control line is stowed. After rigor check number 4, we proceed to folding the drogue into its pouch. We produce a double turn of rubber band onto the apex of the drogue. Make half a pie, 2/3, 1/3. On rigor check number 5, we verified that the drogue glider control line is stowed, the drogue is folded, and the drogue is secured in the loop with the double rubber band. Now we can proceed with the rest of the pack job by S-folding the drogue into this pocket, closing it with the rubber band, and turning 2 turns of rubber band onto the drogue glider control line. At this point, we S-fold this flag in the bottom of a bag so it sits vertical. And then we proceed to insert the bag, making sure that this flap doesn't get folded under, otherwise we need to go and fish it. In the process, you want to make sure that this stow remains locked. Now we're going to stow all these lines. This is the flap that is very short. We made sure that it didn't get flipped under. If you couldn't find it, if you couldn't find the grommets to make the rubber bands, it's because this is folded under. Pull it out. Single, because it goes through the grommets. If the rubber band is not providing sufficient retention, replace them. Don't double them. We start from here, and we don't exceed the width of the bag. and we double them. Roughly 1.5 to 2 inches max. This distance from here to the top of the link should roughly be 42 inches. Double. We're splitting them. Double. Double. Now I can use my 80-pound cotton. So with the riser extension out, we keep it flat, rotate it to the D-bag, make sure that the lines are falling right on top of the two ends. We go with one end, the inboard end, toward the closing flap, the outboard end toward the sidewall, and then the inboard carries to the closing flap for the line compartment. We proceed with the surgeon's knot. And locking knot. And trim at about 1 inch. And now we repeat on the opposite side, where the riser extension is flat. We rotate it to face the bag with the lines on top. The inboard goes to the closing flap. And the line compartment flap. The outboard through the sidewall. And we close it with a surgeon's knot and locking knot. Trim it at roughly 1 inch. Verification is that we do load the extensions and not the lines. Rigger check number 7 verifies that the outer locking stows are stowed correctly and the suspension lines are split into left and right groups. Verify that the pull-up cord is removed and the cross connectors are correctly tied to the outer deployment bag and there's no tension on the suspension lines between the tie and the connector links. Now we are going ahead and place the bag in a container. We're routing the risers down along the sides of the reserve tray. With the lines and the extensions that run down as a continuation of the risers. The technique, it's similar to the freefall. We're not putting the whole corner in, only half away. And we're lifting this so that it can sit level with it. And then we're pulling the harness around the bag. Rigger check number 8. We are verifying that the main risers and the suspension lines are routed along the sides of the riser compartment and to the bottom of the main container. Also that the deployment bag is properly positioned. The closing sequence is the same. Bottom, top, left, right. Difference is that we need to manage the static line. Here the trick is to push the bottom flap in and use the pull-up cord as a mechanical advantage to get the closing loop out. We want the closing pin to be facing up as the static line exits from the 4 o'clock position. So that when you flip it up, the closing pin is under the static line. That is meaningful because when the static line pulls, the pin is oriented in such a way that it doesn't offer extra resistance. Rigor check number 9 verifies the proper closing sequence, bottom, top, left, right, that the static line curve pin is positioned correctly through the main closing loop, the static line is stowed correctly, the pull-up cord is removed, the riser covers are mated, the packing aids are removed and accounted for, the AAD is working properly, and the logbook is filled up correctly. And this concludes the pack job for the RA-360 in a double bag static line configuration.